time for us to have a conversation on this segment of the Tax Dialogue. Now, I've been joined by Dr. Alex Ampaabeng, who is a Fiscal Policy Analyst Specialist with Oxfam, and also Mr. Geoffrey Ocansey, who is the Executive Director of Revenue Mobilization Africa. And we're going to have a conversation about the political manifestos and the tax, conversations in that regard. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
How are you all doing?
We're good.
It's been a while.
Yeah. We're following the tax issues.
You're following the tax issues.
So we buried our head in there.
COVID hide us more.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. How do you guys make it through the whole lockdown period and then the whole, different things that we've been through during COVID? How
Mostly we have been working from home. So you kind of get yourself confined in one corner.
Yeah.
Trying to do all the things you'd be doing normally in a normal office environment. But it's been okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, virtual. It's been a virtual life.
A virtual life. All right, so let's get into the conversation. Our political manifestos, everybody's put out their manifesto now. And what do you make of the manifestos generally as far as their positioning on tax is concerned? Any of you can take it.
Okay. As you rightly said, in every election year, political parties, each of them will put their manifesto, giving all the promises on the things that they want to do.
Yeah.
But one important aspect, which I hope every Ghanaian take serious look at it, is how are we going to finance all the promises in the manifesto? And talking of the financing, we know apart from the few materials we export, the resources we export, predominantly it's about taxation. So both of them have treated the tax differently. If you take the NPP, for example, they look at the tax component of their manifesto, a kind of inbuilt along the various economic or policy positions. So if you take housing, they have how they want to approach housing using taxation.
Yeah.
If you take issues around the general business environment, if you take issues around digitization, so for each aspect of the policy positions, they've embedded tax in it. But if you take the NDC, they also have a particular section which only deals with the kind of taxes they want to implement. So kind of quite contrasting positions, but they all speak to the same issue.
Is there any takeaways you had from looking at it, Geoffrey?
Well, when you look at the tax issues that are in both manifestos, I think they have addressed their issues around reliefs, and our stance around reliefs. So we are going to be specifically looking at value for money from both parties. I mean, we'll pick the NPP manifesto, we'll pick the NDC manifesto, and then we'll match them against the relief that they are granting, what would be in it for the Ghanaian people, So they've done a wonderful good job, and we've seen that the both of them have presented something enough, good enough for discussion. So would make the scrutiny of what's in there per party, and then today I think would focus more on the NPP.
Yeah.
And we're
so let's zoom in straight into the NPP manifesto. I'm sure subsequently we'll address the NDC one as well. But let's start with the NPP one. What I know the last time you were here, we were talking about domestic, revenue mobilization and all of that. And what do you see are positives vis-a-vis negatives as far as that is concerned?
Okay, like I said earlier, I think to be able to assess each of their tax positions, the starting point is being able to see what policy proposals they are putting across. If you have a copy of the manifesto and you go to page 153 of the NPP's manifesto, page 153, the heading I think is on economy. And in there, they have identified 3 things they want to do to improve domestic revenue mobilization using digitized approach. The first one is expanding the tax base. So the tax base, talking of taxable activities which have to be brought into the net. So it's a very strong point, because one thing we've all been crying for is that we need to expand the tax base.
Yeah.
But one thing that I hope they'll be adding and going forward is not only the tax base, but our challenge in Ghana is actually the tax net.
What's the difference?
So the tax base is simply the activities, the businesses, the individuals, the properties that's supposed to be taxed. Okay. Are they being taxed? Okay. So i.e. the taxable properties or assets. And then the tax net is having defined the tax base. The net now is about, are you able to tax those who are supposed to be taxed?
Okay.
So the tax base look at the taxable items, and then the tax base net look at the people. How do you get them in?
Pulled into the...
So normally I use the word net. If you go on the sea for fishing, how wide you spread your net determines how many fishes you bring home. Yeah. So if you're able to cast the net wider, then you're able to catch more fishes. So in the same way, in expanding the tax net, you're looking at, are we able to reach the various people you're supposed to reach? So it's a wonderful initiative, proposal, that they have recognized the need. And they are doing this with digitization, which again, to me, is the foundation. We need to know where the taxpayers are. We need to know where businesses are. Yeah. So the positive side here is that we have the national ID system currently ongoing. We have the digital address system ongoing. We have the TIN registration. All this, in a way, are very enabling factors which are going to help the tax authority in identifying taxpayers, the activities, and then be able to tax them. The second point they're also proposing in there is that they want to simplify the compliance process. Okay. One of the biggest challenges in Ghana is the stages or the complexity of the tax system, how cumbersome the process is, and what taxpayers have to go through in paying the taxes, especially the small and medium-scale enterprises. They have to go through a series of challenges. Some of them are not so tax educated, and tax itself poses a challenge already. So they're having to digest the complex tax laws, and then the issue of compliance. For example, take the LTOs, the Like Taxpayer Office. Okay. If you're based in Tamale, we have only one in the country. So you're based in Tamale, as it stands, anytime you file your tax return, you have to come to Accra. Yeah. I mean, where in this world is this thing happening? So this is long overdue, and I'm happy that the manifesto has picked that up as a key issue, which in a way will contribute to improving domestic revenue. Because you don't expect people to keep up complying if they have to go through all this hectic, cumbersome processes. So, in terms of my takes on that, like I said, the first one is the net. You should emphasize more on widening the net, because anything that has to be taxed in this country, we know all the items that have to be taxed, don't we? Yeah. But the people, especially the informal sector. So going forward, I hope there will be specific policy on taxing the informal sector. And I keep saying the informal sector is not about the person selling wache or the one selling the coconut. But the informal sector is a massive opportunity on its own. Let's use this example I like using all the time. You have these masons, as you call them. This building, this guy can put up a structure like City TV's building in a matter of 3-4 months. He can charge like 100,000 Ghana. He finished, he moved to another one. Within 1 year, this guy can put about 4 or 5 of the same building and pocket almost $500,000. But as it stands, there's no clear-cut way of taxing these people. Yeah. So we need more robust, more targeted informal sector specific approaches to taxing the sector, and not just the usual, we widen the net, but in widening the net, we normally tend to burden the few that's supposed to be paying, especially those who are in the formal sector. Yeah.
What do you make?
You know, my brother rightly mentioned about online filing of tax returns, and you know, we also place the value on the safety once we're pushing people into the digitized arena, we have to be very careful educating them how to be safe. You know, some of the things that are happening with the MTN and Momo issues ongoing. So once you are asking people to pay taxes via the internet, there will be fraudsters out there. They will be there to hunt these people down. And trust me, if you don't put safety measures in place, people will fall foul to it, and they will not see the need of how you came across this one to just help them. You know, when it comes to also what they've done, they've also made sure that they have digitized their construction permits. And these are one of the things that people used to go through a lot of difficulty going to get a permit in the construction industry. And so if you've actually done that, you have actually increased some weight lifting from that area. We're also looking at, when it comes to granting incentives to the automobile sector, they have granted some automobile incentives to Sanitrack and also our own Kantanta. Unfortunately, we have a funny view over there as well. If you put such an incentive in place for a big giant company outside Ghana, and then you are giving same to Kantata, you'll be, for economic nationalism, you'll be trying to protect your companies against the outside companies. Now it is more like you have put a giraffe and a goat on the level playing field for them to pick something from up. You know, so if you give these incentives to these two companies, carefully made, we will be doing a scrutiny for the both. I mean, both local and then the foreign company. How much of what produced here do they need to finish up their production? And these are assembling plants. So do they really come in here to create only jobs, or they are also going to be making sure that they take production lines from here? Boats and knots are being manufactured in Ghana. Tire, are they going to get even basics like boats and knots, tire, and also, let's say, upholstery? What are they going to really be of help to when it comes to our production line? So that if you are saying that maybe our rubber producers or magazine in Kumasi will benefit from this because they'll be producing boats and not and feeding these assembly plants, that's another thing. But if it's only about creating employment, then look at the whole industry of Sonitrack or Kantata. How many persons are they going to be employing? You know, so if that's it's employment alone, then we look at Abasokan, where we have people in our backyard here dismantling only vehicles and also selling the parts. That's a big industry enough. If it's only about creating jobs, you know. But if it's about making sure that you bring these plants here, investors here, who are going to invest here, and then they are going to be adopting our people's products into be putting a finishing touch to their products, then you'll be creating jobs, also creating opportunities for Ghanaian businesses. That is what we'll be looking at. It is not also a cut short to say that for the construction industry, there's a wonderful thing going on there too as well. They're going to grant incentives to some of these people constructing these buildings, because they are going to give them this incentive so that they can be able to build and make sure the buildings are affordable. So it's another wonderful initiative. But the proper targeting of this initiative, will it not leave it for the big giants alone? Because how many people will be in the construction? How many people invest into the construction arena? And when they are done, you know, these affordable housing schemes, let's do a quick scan of it from when it started in Ghana and see how many even middle income people are able to purchase this affordable housings. So when you do such initiatives, they are good. But the proper targeting of these initiatives is very important, so that when you leave the masses behind, you know, the best that can come for most of people will be renting. And when we go to rent issues, our rent taxes issues also come in. So is it that when we are done with this one, we are sure of the specifics that we are going to be getting as a country from rent taxes? Then next, also looking at the number of people who benefit directly from the initiative that we are putting. So value for money will cut across all the things we're looking at. So when you look at that industry as well, the value for money must be very, very, very apt over there, so that we can measure exactly how much we're giving, what we get in return as a country from rent taxes, and then how many people are benefiting directly from the sector. But it will give a boom, because the construction industry is the second largest employer when it comes to the moment you start constructing a project like a road construction. Carpenters will be employed. You need laborers, you know. So beside agriculture, next to agriculture, you place construction. The ILO did a survey in Ghana, and they placed them in that direction. I mean, agric is the largest. That one you cannot. I mean, so if you were bringing this auto support, I was expecting that if we go to factories that will come in and build agric machines, you know, if it was going into the industry of, let's say, producing tractors and processors, these supports should go into processors that will process our raw materials, because we are still taking gold and cocoa out there. Raw. Look, around CTFM, your area here, there used to be a lot of blacksmiths in this area. I think there's one still down the street. Look, when I did a survey about entrepreneurship in this country, there was one about apprenticeship. One area that most of the people I interviewed were looking at the blacksmith industry. You know, people constantly want to change the necklace, I mean the borders, I mean change it into another something design, but how many people are in that industry? So if you were coming here with machines to support the gold industry by bringing machines that, you know, one thing I praise Kantata so well for the initiative, but sometimes I ask, what if they invested in machines that could drive our economic nationalism, processing our production products like, let's say, gold, cocoa to start with, cotton, rubber. We're still exporting all these things in their raw state. So if we had machines, companies that will come and build machines that will process these raw materials, when you are giving them incentives, then I can understand that I'll value for money, because a lot of people will be employed. Even if you go by strictly agric, the total number of youths that will get employment from these machines, using them along the supply chain of agriculture alone, the total number of people will be employed, and the taxes that we will reap in, and the revenues that will come to the state and the people will be enough.
So, Dr. Ampaabeng, the manifestos, as you saw them, and talking about the NPP one specifically, do you feel like it reflects the reality of where we are?
I would say fundamentally yes. And the reason I'm saying that is that, see, the emphasis on domestic revenue mobilization is very important. And I think I didn't finish. The third point from how they want to improve DRM is on, what do you call it? Improving the collection. Our key challenge has been leakages in the system. So people who are supposed to pay, are they paying? Do you have a proper auditing mechanisms in place? All this has been identified to me. Using the digitized approach is good. One thing also they've proposed, I think also will help, is on the housing sector. They want to also use kind of tax incentives, like Geoffrey was saying, to stimulate that sector. We all know the housing challenges we have in Ghana. So on page 157 to 158 of the manifesto, there's a proposal to establish Ghana Housing Authority. And then under the Ghana Housing Authority, we're going to have a mortgage finance company, which is going to manage the mortgage, the funds. And one of their mandates is actually with the land issues. So hopefully the issue of land gas, maybe I'm being too optimistic. The issue of land gas will overcome. Whilst this don't have direct tax implications, there is one thing I found really interesting. There's a proposal to establish National Housing Rental Support Scheme, which they are proposing to seed with 100 million Ghana cedi for people who want to rent, people who are identifiable in a job, other formal or informal sector. To be able to qualify, your landlord should be registered with a scheme, which I find it really good, even though you should pay rental taxes. But how many of us are paying? I mean, just build your house, rent it out. You don't pay anything, but the law is requiring of you to pay tax 8% of it on the rental income. We don't. So we see lots of people coming to take advantage of this rental support scheme, but your landlord having to register. The money doesn't come to you, the taxpayer. The money is given directly by the government to the landlord, which in a way will help us to build a database of landlords. It will give an idea of the average cost of housing, which will give us some kind of proxy in determining how much somebody should pay.
Yeah.
And one thing I also find really, really good, also on page 178 of the manifesto, is that they are proposing to introduce a new tax for the micro and small-scale enterprises.
Yeah.
This is a very wonderful idea, and again, we've pushed this for so many times on this program. If you go to countries like Seychelles, they used to have a very difficult informal sector like we have, struggling to tax them. In 2013, the Seychelles government introduced a kind of standard way of taxing small and micro-scale enterprises.
Okay.
So if your income is under $50,000, you only pay 1.5% gross turnover tax.
Okay.
And you don't pay anything again. Okay. And the whole assessment is done on one page. So even a primary 5-6-year-old child will understand how it works. Nothing complex. How much do you sell in the year? 46,000. What is 1.5% of it? Give to the government. Job done.
Okay.
You go to Albania. They have a similar approach, where if your income is under $50,000, again you pay 4%. You go Lithuania, they have the same thing. Theirs is about $35,000.
Yeah.
Either you pay the flat rate or do filing. Yeah. So it's not fair as it stands to have micro, small enterprises having to be subject to the normal corporate income tax returns, which is one of the root causes of tax evasion, because people don't understand it. You get it? So if you simplify the process and people can understand it, I believe the compliance level will shoot. So it's one of the economic realities I would say they've identified, because we know about 90% of our companies are dominated by small and medium scales. We have few multinationals.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a specific approach to taxing the dominant sector of your economy, then you have a challenge. So I'm really happy with this new proposal coming in.
Okay. Now, just quickly, if you were to design, or to have been, if you were added to the team that was designing this manifesto, what would you have wanted to include?
For me, it would be the tax exemptions. You know, one thing I would have been very, very hard on is the tax exemptions. Look, in 2018 to 2019, each year we give over $4.5 billion in exemptions. The free senior high school cost us only $2.2 billion.
Okay, so let's go back again.
Okay.
Let's talk about tax exemptions.
Yes.
For our viewers. Explain what you mean when you refer to the term tax exemption, and why it is such a problem as we're talking about.
So in a very simple term, when you talk of tax exemptions, it's about the taxes that companies are supposed to pay. You've actually relieved them for whatever reasons. I mean, there are lots of reasons that we give, that we ask companies that this is the tax you're supposed to pay, but we are allowing you either to pay reduced or not to pay at all. One of the reasons could be location. The northern part of Ghana, we know some time ago, was quite deprived. So government introduced, and it's still in place, that if you set up your business in the northern part, in the southern part of the country, you pay reduced tax in a way to encourage economic activity over there. But over the years, one thing we've realized is that we are giving most of those exemptions on the blanket. Some of the companies will register in the north just to claim the exemptions, but they're operating in Accra. And some of them have been going on for years. So I would have had a system where you have a very well-targeted tax exemption regime. I'm not saying it's bad, but let's look at the economic benefits of it. What are the pros and cons, the costs and then the gains for the tax for us? Until we can do this, also make sure that every now and then we track to see who is benefiting. People in the free zones, most are not paying. Before the term ends for them to start paying, they wrap up, come back and change the company's name. So can we introduce something like exit taxes? So if you exit before the exemption time, you'll be forced to pay all the taxes you've enjoyed. So I would have been more harder on the exemptions, looking at 2019 exemption, being able to pay for free SHS and all our road budgets. That is how big the problem is.
Okay. Geoffrey?
Like my brother said, the tax exemptions and narrowing down on that one. that's why we worried that the manifesto did not speak about the tax exemptions bill, where they got into and how they look at passing the bill and making it a law and everything else. We also look at...
considering that it's a bill, right. How disappointing is it that it's not included in the conversation?
Well, it's quite disappointing because you want to know, because especially when it's a document that's going to govern everybody else in this country on how we're going to be granting these incentives. So you would expect that there will be a talk around it to see how far we're going to put it in place, while it guides all the incentives that they have stated in there as a party. But it also shows you that all the incentives they are granting, I'm sure they are taking inspiration from that document. So we cannot be so hard on them, but I think it would have been proper if they had it in there to solidify their respect for that bill. I also looked at tax irregularities. It was absent in the manifesto, but as I speak with you now, the 2019 document that comes from the AG, the Auditor General, stated that we lost 2,666,743,134 Ghana cedis to tax irregularities alone. For a period of 2015 to 2019, we lost 8,458,911,182 Ghana cedis. So you see what it is for a revenue mobilizer like me. I think about after we've gathered, we're saying the expert tells you that after researching, they realize we've gathered something that we can gather more. But if we've gathered just this little, how much is slipping away is a problem. Also, that a problem was cash irregularities. And that was the abuse of the VAT refund, the tax refund and the VAT Act 2013-870. That's also an issue. But you asked my brother if we had anything, if we saw in there, if we were ourselves were included in the committee, what would we like to put in there? I think I would have proposed that they remove all tax incentives from tobacco and alcohol products, because these are the things that are going to be putting a lot of weight on our health budget, and rather they should place sin taxes on these products. While you remove all taxes from it, you should rather place sin taxes on them. I would also have insisted that we rather put tax on the gains from lottery. Rather than removing it, we should rather put taxes on them because it's a form of income or a benefit for some people. And then rather,
that's a chance.
I would rather call for a removal of taxes from sanitary pads. And then I would also like to enforce the gift tax. People are still giving tax, and it's a law that they should give some tax
above a certain amount. You have
to give taxes to it. So I believe if we do that very well, we'll be safer. If we are just smart enough to quickly look around. There are very wonderful ways we can mobilize some funding for this country. The processes he said are wonderful. Let's educate the people the more. And when we have educated them, I'm sure they will understand the systems very well. When they understand such systems, it becomes very, very easy, because when you look at the final recommendations, when it comes to tax irregularities, the final recommendations that the Auditor General gave to the country were the same things that we sit here every day and talk about. It's actually, he talks about strengthening and monitoring and supervision for staff of the GRA. He talks about improving the efficiency in tax collection, which my brother again today mentioned here. And then he also talks about applying sanctions prescribed by the tax laws on defaulters. So you see, over and over again, it has to do more with commitment to implement some of the things we as CSO community members have been saying, what governments have always been saying, and international rules that apply.
Fantastic. Quickly wrap up for us.
Yes, I think we have to be a bit fair on the NPP manifesto, because the page 157 did talk about the exemptions. And one thing they said, they actually stressed that exemptions would not be given on the blanket, and that was the statement. So going forward, they are proposing more like cost-benefit way of analyzing whether each particular exemption worth it. So I think that let's clarify that. But having said that, I think overall It looks good. I hope that it's not just going to be a paper document, that finally whoever comes in, and because today we are doing the NPP, that if the NPP comes in, these proposals will not be swept under the carpet, because we cannot depend on loans or any other form of financing. The money has to be generated domestically to finance our development.
Fantastic. I want to say a big thank you to you, Dr. Alex Ampaabeng, who is a Fiscal Policy Specialist with Oxfam, and also to Mr. Geoffrey Ocansey, who's Executive Director of Revenue Mobilization Africa.
Hi there. We hope you enjoyed the show.
Make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share with your friends.
This is Breakfast Daily on City TV.
Join the Breakfast Daily team Monday through Fridays from 7:30 a.m. to 10. Join us for breakfast daily, only on City TV.